Hello, everyone. Hi, good morning. Thank you guys so much for having me here today for chapel. I'm so excited to speak to all of you. So I am an actress, and I guess I'm also a speaker now, since that is what God has called me to also do. Hence why I'm here speaking to all of you. And fun fact, guys, this is only my third time talking to a big group of students, and I'm super duper nervous, so go easy on me. Thank you. So, who here has seen The Chosen? Nice. It is an incredible show about the life of Christ and those who met him, and I'm not being biased because I'm in it truly. For those of you that haven't seen it, you can download the app and watch it when you go home tonight. I promise that you will see Jesus like never before, and you'll really get to see Christ and what he can do for you in your life. It'll inspire you to dig deeper in your Bibles, to go and look at these stories. And so I know this because if he did it for me, he can do it for you too. And in the show, I play Eden, and she's Simon Peter's wife. Eden is an incredibly strong woman of faith, something that I didn't always have in my own life growing up. But thankfully, thankfully I came to God, and I put my life and dreams in his hands, and he came through and literally prepared me, shaped me, my heart and spirit to be who I am standing here in front of you today. And so I think it's important to share with you all my story and my testimony, and that hopefully it encourages you all to seek God and in all that you do. And especially when it comes to finding your purpose and your place in this world. The 3 C's I talk about in my story and that I want you guys to remember is character, community, and Christ. Your character and finding your identity in Christ is the most important thing that you can do. Because for a long time, I didn't know my identity and where exactly I fit in growing up. And when I say I didn't know my identity, I don't mean that I didn't know who I was or where I came from, but my character and who I am in Christ didn't align for me, and I didn't have a relationship with Christ until much later in life. I was born in a really small town in Brazil. My mom was only 19 years old when she had me. I never knew my biological father, but my mom knew she always wanted a better life for me than the one that we would have had we stayed in Brazil. So, like many immigrants, my mom was hit with the American dream. So she got her visa to come to America, and when I was 3, she packed a backpack with some clothes, hopes and dreams, and she had to leave me in Brazil with my grandma when I was 3 years old. She promised me that she would return home to get me once she got a stable life and home for me to come to America too. And so that happened when I was 6. So within the few years after my mom landed in South Florida, she met who I consider now my father. And they got married, they had my brother, and my mom was finally able to bring me to complete our family. I was raised with my brother and 2 other sisters from my dad's side, and so my mom became their stepmom. I know it's like a crazy family tree. My husband had to literally draw out a tree for himself to try to understand, but I'm sure you guys can keep up. So the 4 of us siblings were the closest siblings ever, and I consider them my best friends. Even after my mom and dad ended up getting a divorce when I was 10, my dad still fought for us all to stay together and to grow up together. So my siblings and I have been through a lot, and which is part of the reason why we stayed so close, and I believe that God really put us together so that we would be stronger together through everything. Growing up, though, we never really went to church. My mom was raised Catholic. We believed in God, but I never had a Bible or most definitely didn't have my own relationship with Jesus. We did pray a lot, though, especially in my preteen years when my mom became a single mom. She struggled between jobs to get food and keep a roof over our heads. I remember sometimes having to search around the house and in her car just to find some loose change to be able to get breakfast before school. Particularly the croissant sandwiches and French toast sticks from Burger King. Has anybody here tried those items, by the way? They're really good. If you haven't, tell your parents to drive you in the morning before school, or if you have your license, go and get some and have some in honor of my youth. It has a special place in my heart. Anyway, I had to grow up really, really fast. I got my first job when I was 14 to be able to pay for my cell phone bill, my sports equipment, uniforms for cheerleading, softball, school field trips, movie theater with friends, like you name it. Really anything that I wanted to do, I had to find a way to pay for because my mom just couldn't. It took me a long time to feel proud of my story and how I grew up. I used to be embarrassed to sometimes share it, but I'm forever grateful for it because God truly made something great out of a really rough situation. And I'm no longer ashamed of it, of what I went through, because it has shaped me, my character, my identity. A lot of you may not relate to my story, but I tell you this because it's important for you all to know who you are and your identity in Christ now, in this pivotal moment in your age, before stepping out into the real world. Whatever you feel God is calling you to do, and you choose to go for it, you have to know where you stand, because this world can so easily break you. And if you don't know who you are and whose you are, I believe it's going to be a lot harder to go through life without having Jesus guiding you. And I say this with so much confidence because I know personally what it was like to live a life without Jesus, and now living a life with him as my center and my compass through this crazy industry of acting. Which leads me to share our second C, which is community. So after I graduated high school, I attended a local college in South Florida. I wanted to be in the medical field, and either a nurse or working in pediatrics because I do love kids. And then I thought that I wanted to go into microbiology and study bacteria, viruses, etc. Turned out I was really good at it, and I was doing really well in my classes and my labs, and that my teacher, she thought it would be a really great route for me to go. But after about 2 semesters, though, I really felt lost, confused, just completely drained. I stopped going to college because I didn't feel the passion that I needed to continue, and I realized that even though I was doing great in my studies, and that it just wasn't for me. Please do not quit college, guys. I promise if I could do it over, and had I known that I wanted to be an actress that early on, I would have just switched my major, right? But I was so unhappy, and I felt so misplaced. Not to mention, I was not seeking God, that I made the abrupt decision to leave, which led me to feel like a quitter, a loser, and I was just holding so much weight and depression. But now I had to get out and start finding work. I entered into the life of the restaurant industry, where I went from job to job through the years of hosting, serving, and then bartending. Now, while there's nothing wrong with working and making a living in the restaurant industry, I know so many friends and parents who have made that their careers and they love what they do. However, for me, sometimes I got into like the wrong sort of crowd, the wrong community that I knew I felt uncomfortable in. And I didn't really have a purpose either. I'm like, what else am I gonna do? So I felt trapped, and I fell into more deep depression, not knowing what I wanted to do in my life. One of my best friends and roommates at the time asked me one of the most important questions in my life to this day, which was, Lara, what were you doing when you last felt truly happy? It took me what felt like an eternity to answer that question, but it's like my mind raced through bits and pieces of my childhood, and the answer blurted out. I was happiest when I was at my elementary school. It was a performing arts school, and we were putting on dances and shows and music. Elementary school. That's a really long time to go through life not doing what truly makes you happy. So that night, I Googled acting classes near me because she said, just go for it. And I was terrified. I thought, what am I doing? I'm too old to start. I'm not gonna make it. This is crazy. So already the enemy is attacking me, and I haven't even started yet. But I wanted to share something with you guys that I read in a book, and it was, don't go missing out on your blessing just because you're stuck between logic and reason. Everything in you might be shouting, what if this doesn't work? But try switching perspectives and think, what if it does? More would be gained than lost, and God is only asking for you to be available. Needless to say, I showed up for that acting class, and our teacher had us immediately go into some acting exercises, and then she came up with a scene for us. I remember crawling across the floor, army style, right? Because had you imagine that we were like in a war scene and we were being shot at and like chaos was happening all around us, and then you had to like crawl to one of your army friends and drag them to safety and care for their wounds. It was so stressful. I'm definitely prepared to play a soldier in a movie or TV show after that exercise, and 7 years later, I'm still waiting for that audition, but I'm ready when it comes, right? Most people probably would have been frightened to show up to their first acting class having to do all this, but I just remember everything in me, my soul being on fire, and just realizing like, oh my gosh, this is where I belong. I found my community. What's crazy about the timing of it all with finding my purpose and calling is that I was dating someone who's a Christian and him and his family started inviting me to go to church. And after almost a year of dating, though, I realized that he just wasn't the one. And that was okay, because even though we didn't end up together, God still used him and his family for a purpose in my life. And so when I felt the calling to move to Atlanta to further pursue my acting career, the guy who I had just broken up with came to say his goodbyes and to ask me another one of the most important questions. And it was, you're moving to another state by yourself, going after what seems an impossible dream for some. Don't you want God's guidance and peace and all this uncertainty to help make your dreams come true? And I was like stunned. I had no way out of this, and I couldn't even talk myself out of it because it's as if Jesus' Spirit had me so lovingly pinned down, is the best way I can describe it. And that began my journey of receiving my Bible. I said, yes, I do want that, with tears rolling down my face. And, it became my compass and my guide, again, through life and going even further in my relationship with Jesus, as well as the calling that he had on me and my life, and this incredible gift he gave me for acting that I didn't even know I had. I was 24 years old when I was saved. 2 years later, it all aligned. I packed everything I owned in a tiny little car, and I drove 10 hours north to Atlanta. One of my favorite verses will always be Jeremiah 16:9, and it's, in our hearts we plan the course, but the Lord establishes our steps. So no matter what you want to do or who you want to be when you grow up or goals you set for your life, those are all great. But it's God, Jesus' Spirit, that's going to pave your road, create your path, open or close those doors to get you there. I am so grateful that I trusted Jesus and followed my heart with him as guide, because God custom designs your life to be magnificent. And honestly, sometimes magnificent can feel so unknown, daring, and at the same time, absolutely scary. It calls for a reckless abandon of all things safe. But when it's God's calling for you, he will make sure that things align in your favor through prayer and trust. Sorry, guys. Atlanta has been the best thing that's happened to me. I was meant to move there for my journey and my story, because after moving to Atlanta, it's like God had his hands all over my life. My sister was already living in Georgia at the time, and her boyfriend, her boyfriend's family opened up their home to me, and so I stayed in their spare bedroom. I got everyone going to church again, and my sister, who had grown up Catholic, turned atheist, and then a believer again, is just a whole other amazing story on its own. And it just goes to show that you never know how God is using you to inspire or quite literally save someone's life. Plugging me into the right community was key for my success. Between finding a great serving job at a nice restaurant that I could sustain my acting career as well, and it's at this restaurant where I made some of my best friends who have become family. One of my best friends, Tara, she's also a believer, an incredible actress and photographer in Atlanta. God definitely put us to cross paths because she had moved there too from North Carolina, and we ended up living together for a while, studying acting together, and she would even help me late at nights when we got off work to send in auditions. And she's also a photographer, so she took my headshots, and those can get really pricey. So talk about God coming through to help in the finance department. That restaurant is also where I met my husband. And we got married last year in May. My forever person, thanks. Yeah, my forever person that God put into my life, and that wouldn't have not happened if I never took that leap of faith and moved to where God called me to be. And someone else I also happened to meet in Atlanta, back in 2015, she had a huge part in how I got to know about The Chosen. 3 years later. So here's God at work again, doing what he does best, working at my community. I met Taylor Kalupa through some mutual acting friends while she was on a break filming a faith-based film called I'm Not Ashamed. It is an incredible movie based on a true story about a girl named Rachel Joy Scott in the Columbine school shooting. It's really great if you guys haven't seen it. It's called I'm Not Ashamed. Taylor was so sweet, and we connected so quickly. But more than that, I just loved how much she was so open about her faith, how much she loved talking about Jesus, her love for Jesus, and I wanted in on that kind of faith and the light that she brought. Taylor went back to filming and then eventually went back home to LA. But we continued to remain friends, and then Taylor started working at a casting office as one of the associates, and sure enough, that ends up being the office casting The Chosen. I remember Taylor calling me and asking, saying, hey, there's this amazing project I think you'll be great for, the role of Mary Magdalene. And I'm thinking, yay, great. Wait, who is that? And so Taylor, I feel like she probably did one of these like facepalm things at me. Anyway, she sends the script over, and with any other role, though, it's not promised to you just because you know someone. In fact, Taylor didn't even tell the casting director that she knew me. So I dove into the script, and I did my research on who Mary Magdalene was, and I submitted a 12-page audition for the role. It's a lot. And after that, the rest was up to God. But I remember feeling so connected and so overwhelmed in the best way after reading the script, and if you've seen the show, you know why. So the casting director ended up loving my audition, and then she sent it off to Dallas. Dallas, our director, loved it too, but he had a different role in mind for me. So a few days later, I submitted another 12-page audition, and after a few weeks or months, I didn't hear anything, but then Dallas wanted to meet over Skype. It's kind of like I don't know if you guys know what Skype is. Yeah, okay. But still gave me no indication of like whether if I booked it or if I got, like, am I gonna work on it? The industry loves to do this to actors, guys. It's stressful. If I didn't have Jesus in times like this for some peace, I would have quit a long time ago. Because the acting industry will pull you through the ringer of like auditions, callbacks, chemistry reads, etc., and then sometimes you still get rejected. But not this time. I ended up booking the role of Eden, and that got cast. God came through full circle for me, between nudging and calling me to put my faith in him, to take acting classes, putting incredible people on my path, and then booking a faith-based show that's literally saving and changing lives around the world. All this to say how important it is to surround yourself with people who love and support you and will keep pushing you towards your dream. And also the importance of surrounding yourself with a solid community of believers too. I know you guys have been touching a lot on Galatians 6:10, that we are to do good to all people, but especially those who belong to the family of believers, because together we are stronger. God will use us to go out into all the world, and we will interact with all the people. And for some, you may be the closest that somebody may come to knowing who Jesus was. Which leads me to our third and final C, which is Christ. Hang in there, guys. I know it's because it's the most important. And none of this matters without him. So always remember that Jesus is on your side. Especially if he's placed a dream and calling in your heart. And remember that not everyone is going to be on board and supportive of your dreams either. They won't be supportive of your decisions. I have family members, like right now, that literally have said that I can't act, that I'm a terrible actress, that they don't take me seriously as an actress. That hurts like you wouldn't believe. People may even make fun of you and try to discourage you from dreams that you have on your heart and tell you that you're too tall, you're too short, too old, too young, not smart enough to be this, not pretty or handsome enough to be that. I've had people tell me that I'm too nice and too sensitive to be in this industry. What kind of backwards compliment is that? Remember that Jesus himself even struggled with people not believing in him. His own brothers didn't believe in him. Even after he was performing miracle after miracle and gaining popularity, they made fun of him. Jesus let it go in one ear and out the other. Sorry, guys. You have to sift through who's around you, because sometimes the people who have known you the longest will try to keep you in the same box that you grew up in. But people don't determine your destiny. Jesus does. And from experience, what they say about you and how they try to make you feel cannot stop what God has placed in your heart. You have the power in deciding to not let those people get to you. You're going to have to distance yourself from people who are always trying to put limitations on you and talk you out of what God has put in your heart. Trust that God is taking you to the next level, whether people see it or not. Your ability and your influence is much larger than you think, and God wants to highlight you in places that you guys don't even know about yet. God has provided and empowered you with exactly what you need to be who you're called to be. God is always working to get things to you, even when it feels like he isn't. And sometimes he uses you to help get things out to others, blessings or life-giving words that someone needs to hear to be encouraged. I'm not gonna lie. When I got asked to come speak to you guys, I was terrified. Still am. I certainly don't feel like a professional speaker, right? And I can't quote you every story or every verse in the Bible, but God reminded me that you can be encouraging and a blessing while still being a work in progress. And it took me a long time and a lot of work on myself currently to truly believe that. So let Jesus use you where you are. It's up to you if you want God's help or not. He freely gives it to us, so why not take it? Some of you may think that there are unimportant things that you shouldn't bring to God, so you just want to deal with it on your own because you think that he's got a lot way bigger prayers to answer in this world, and that you don't want to bother him with the small stuff. And while I'm sure God appreciates your concern, he is so much greater than we know. Whether it's asking him to help you get courage to speak in front of hundreds of people, or guidance to what you want to do after this, or what college you want to go to. You all are attending an incredible school right now. You're all so blessed to have that opportunity that a lot of kids don't have, myself included. I wish I had the opportunity to attend a school like this, and looking at all of you, I know how talented you are, and I'm imagining that if I had started and just been at a school like this, and now at 32, like I would be killing it. So use that to your advantage. And also give your parents too a big hug when you see them, especially if they or your grandparents immigrated from another country. Shout out to them and your teachers and your coaches and staff for their immense sacrifices in wanting to give you guys the best possible future. Following your dreams will not be easy. I'm still going after mine, even as I stand here. I'm still working on following my dreams of being a consistent working actor. And the key word here is consistent, because when you're on the grind, the reality is after you finish filming, you're unemployed again after, hundreds or so auditions and praying that you book the next one. So be more than inspired, be committed. It's not easy, but we do things that God calls us to do. And even in fear, we do it anyway, because God is within us and we will not fail. I need you guys to believe in more than what your circumstances dictate. It doesn't matter where you come from, what families you were born into. Your life is bigger than the schools you will attend, the jobs you'll have when you're adulting so hard. All the fame that may come, the successes and failures, they mean nothing without Christ. The disciples were chosen even though they felt unworthy. And look at all of the incredible things that they went out and did and wrote about through following Jesus. And their lineage continues through you, which means that you guys can do amazing things too. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness and into his light." You are all living every day chosen. Your generation is the chosen. So your 3 C's: character, community, Christ. Build those 3 into your life every day, and I can't wait to see where God takes you all.